One of the objectives of any conference like this is to provide the attendees with things they can take away that are valuable. So I already have my takeaway. Last night I was introduced to the performing artist Nina Persson, who I should have heard of, and I recognize her songs, but I didn't remember knowing about. I'm a music lover. She was a spectacular performer. Those of you who were there, wouldn't you agree with me? So my takeaway is I've already downloaded 2 of the songs she sang last night, and they're on my phone. And so if nothing else happens today, I will feel that I had a major accomplishment. Steve made a very generous introduction of me and my work, both this morning and last night, and I thank you for that. It reminds me of the story of the 3 guys that go to heaven. And the first one comes in, and God says, "What was your IQ?" And the man says, 140. And God said, "Well, wonderful. I'm looking forward to discussing the great works of art and literature." And the second one comes up, and God said, "What was your IQ?" And the man said, 160. And God said, "Spectacular. We can discuss the theory of relativity." And the third guy came in, and God said, "What was your IQ?" And he said, 70. And God thought him in, and he said, "I think I'm going to send you back to Earth and ask you to be an ambassador." So it's not all it's made out to be. It is an honor to be here. I had a great time in Sweden. When I was there, I had a lifelong passion triggered for the issues that we're all here to discuss. And I appreciate Renee and Steve being asked to be the chairman of today's conference. You've heard about and you know by your attendance what the subject matter is, so I won't go through that again. I am going to introduce a slightly different approach, again focused on the idea of giving you something that you can take away and use. I've asked each speaker to identify in the course of their remarks one important idea in their area of work that might make a big difference. So I'm going to, with this statement, remind speakers to please follow that direction. At the end of the day, I will provide a summary of some of what I think are the best of these ideas. And I hope each of you then will be able to take away 3 or 4 or 10 new ideas you haven't heard about, but that can make a difference in the dealing with the important problems we're discussing. Before we get into the urbanization challenge, I did want to talk a little bit about climate change and the alternative energy solutions to climate change that I've been identified with. Can you have the first slide? I was going to ask if you're, in general, pleased with the direction of the debate about climate change and the progress that we've made globally. No, I'm not either. And this cartoon sort of represents, one way to look at the problem. When I left Sweden, I was excited. There was tremendous technology breakthroughs promising to drive down the cost of alternatives. Now I feel disappointed. There has been some progress. I mean, renewables are now 13% of U.S. electricity generation. That's way up. Wind is 3 times greater than it was when I left Sweden. Solar is 4 times more. U.S. emissions are down 12%. The EU will meet its 20% reduction by 2020 goal with room to spare. The second slide, please. And I found this chart in The Economist magazine. I'm sure you can't really read it, but you get the idea. This chart represents 14 billion tons of CO2 that have been mitigated. CO2 emissions that did not occur because of these various activities. So there is some success. Still, what about the failure of that Copenhagen conference? And what about the Republican climate deniers? These are the things that are frustrating. So that leads to the third slide. I like this a lot. It's by an artist, I forget her name, but it's obviously the picture of a tiger half formed by a puzzle, and it begs the question, what's missing? So I will offer, and this is my one big idea, I will offer my suggestion of what's missing. there's something wrong with the climate debate, particularly in the U.S. And I would term it as being too ad hominem. Do you know what that word means? I didn't. I had to look it up. An ad hominem attack is an effort to tear down an opponent, not by criticizing his ideas, but by challenging his credibility. We see this in politics all the time, and I worry that that attitude has crept into the climate debate. Instead of rolling our eyes, I think we should listen more to what people who are on the other side of this debate are saying. Some of them have legitimate objections that we should be able to respond to. For example, there are 1 million people living in coal country in the United States. That's 10% of the population of Sweden. What about them? It's legitimate for them to be worried about this. What about the effect on jobs? The cost of renewables, even as they've come down, is more expensive. In Germany, some companies are worried about spending 50% more for power. This might prevent them from building new factories, which might prevent the creation of jobs. What about that? What's the answer to that? Just by raising that question doesn't mean they're a denier and we should roll our eyes at how stupid they are. Poland prefers burning coal to create electricity rather than the alternative, which is to import more gas from Russia. Certainly we can't accuse them of being climate deniers because of holding on to those views. You get my point. So my one idea is I think we can take the climate debate to the next level, and that is by showing more empathy, and by, instead of, as I've said, rolling our eyes at people who disagree with us, listening to what their objections are, thinking about the right response, and crafting arguments that are persuasive. Next we're going to move on to speakers who are more knowledgeable than me. I am the chairman. I've been so appointed, and I'm now in charge of this conference. So there are a few ground rules that I'd like to assert. One is, as I've said, all speakers, please follow my suggestion and identify one big idea that might make a difference. Second, I'm not going to make elaborate introductions of the speakers as Steve made for me. They're all distinguished people. They've all been selected because of the great accomplishments they've had in the areas of interest. Their bios and their CVs are in the book that you have. So rather than waste valuable time by repeating what's in the book, I'm just going to have them come up and let you read about who they are and what their background is. I think this will save time. And speaking of time, I'm a sports fan, and there's something in sports, whether it's football or soccer or basketball, called clock management. And good teams are able at the end of the game to sort of manage the clock to their benefit so they can run plays that allow them to win. So I guess my most important job for the rest of the day is clock management. So I will ask everybody to respect the time limits that they've been given. We have very many speakers and many important subjects to cover. We can do it, but only if we remain on time. As always happens, if people tend to go over, I will stand up with a minute or two to go, and if they don't wrap up, I will come on the stage, and if that doesn't work, I will resort to some sort of violence. So again, the bios are in the package, the speakers are all distinguished, we have a great lineup of them. We hope that you will be able to leave today with a list of new ideas you had not heard about that will make a difference in addressing these problems. Our first keynote speaker is by Jan Sturesen of PwC. Will you please come to the stage and take my place? Thank you.